All right, let's talk about something that's literally in the air we breathe. Or, for over a billion people in India, something that's making the air they breathe a serious problem. We're going to dive into India's air pollution crisis. We'll look at the sheer scale of it, the heartbreaking human cost, and then, importantly, the smart solutions that are giving us some real hope. To really get a handle on just how serious this is, I want to start with just one number: 1 in 8. 1 in 8. What? Well, according to the Indian Council of Medical Research, that's how many deaths in India can be traced back to air pollution. Just let that sink in. This isn't just some abstract statistic, it's a massive health crisis that's hiding in plain sight. So how on earth did it get this bad? Let's break it down. We're going to start by looking at the key parts of this crisis, beginning with the main offender, the pollutant that's causing most of the trouble. Okay, so the main villain in this whole story is something called PM 2.5. Now, what is that? Think of it like this. It's microscopic dust, so incredibly tiny that it can sneak past all your body's natural defenses. It gets deep into your lungs and can even break into your bloodstream. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It's this invisible threat that gets inside us. And we're not talking about a small group of people being exposed here. This is the daily reality for almost everyone. A truly staggering 77% of India's population is breathing air with PM 2.5 levels that are way above what the country's own standards say is safe. This isn't just a big city problem, it's a full-blown nationwide emergency. Now, this is really interesting because it shows us exactly where the crisis is hitting hardest. What you're looking at is 2024 data for the top 10 most polluted cities. We're talking places like Barnihat, Delhi, and Gurgaon. And you see the pattern, right? Most of them are in the Indo-Gangetic Plain. This huge, densely populated area is kind of like a perfect storm, where geography and human activity team up to trap all that pollution. So where is all this stuff coming from? Well, it boils down to four main culprits. You've got emissions from the huge and growing number of vehicles on the road. Then there's pollution from factories and coal-fired power plants. You also have the seasonal issue of farmers burning crop stubble. And finally, all the dust from non-stop construction. It's this messy combination of things, and the price we're paying for it? Well, it's staggering. So what does breathing this air day in and day out actually do to people? We've talked about the causes, but what's the real price being paid? That's what we're looking at next. The very real, very heavy cost of dirty air for both our health and our economy. You know, if you could boil down all the health impacts into a single, devastating number, this would be it. On average, air pollution is shaving 1.7 years off the life of every single person in India. And let's be really clear here. This isn't about people who are already old dying a bit earlier. We're talking about premature deaths. Over half of the people who die from air pollution are under the age of 70. These are parents, brothers, sisters, people in the prime of their lives, just gone. This slide really drives home what's at stake. Look at the two sides here. On one side, the cost. Nearly 2 years of life just gone, on average. But then look at the other side, the reward. This is the hopeful part. In the hardest hit states, places like Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh, just cleaning the air to meet safety standards could give people back more than 2 years of their lives. It shows us that this is a problem we can actually solve, with a huge, huge payoff. And the real tragedy here is that this burden doesn't fall on everyone equally. This data is tough to look at because it focuses on the most vulnerable people in any society, our children. In a city choked with pollution like Delhi, almost a third of kids have respiratory issues. A third. That is nearly double the rate for kids in rural areas. We are literally risking the health of an entire generation. Okay, I know that was a really grim picture, but here's the thing. It is not hopeless. Not at all. The good news is we actually know how to fix this. So in this next part, let's open up the toolbox and look at the solutions. Everything from government programs to some really clever new strategies that are showing us the way to cleaner air. All right, so the government's flagship program is called the National Clean Air Program, or NCCAP. It's got a really ambitious goal to cut particulate matter by 40% by 2026. Now, that's a fantastic goal to have, but the reality is that progress has been pretty slow. A lot of cities are really struggling to hit even their earlier, easier targets. So you might be asking, why is the progress so slow? Well, this chart gives us a pretty big clue. It's about where the money's going. A whopping 67% of the funding went to managing road dust. Now contrast that with two of the biggest sources we talked about earlier, industrial pollution and dirty cooking fuels. They each got just 1% of the funding. See the problem? There's a total mismatch between where the money is going and where the biggest sources of pollution actually are. And this is where some fresh thinking comes into play. I love this quote from Rohini Pandey at Yale's Economic Growth Center. She talks about using carrots rather than sticks. For years, the main approach to something like crop burning was just to ban it and fine farmers who did it. That's the stick. But what if we tried something totally different? What if we used incentives, the carrot?
And that idea led to this really brilliant experiment. It's called Payments for Ecosystem Services. And here's how simple it is. Step 1, you just offer farmers a cash payment to not burn their crop residue. Step 2, and this is the really clever part, you give them a little bit of that money up front. Why? Because it builds trust. These farmers have been let down before. And finally, step 3, they get the rest of the payment, but only after satellites have checked and confirmed that they actually didn't burn their fields. Simple, right?
And guess what? It worked. This one little change, that small payment up front, made all the difference. It cut crop burning by as much as 11.5 percentage points. It's a perfect example of how, if we actually take the time to understand the real-world problems people are facing, like a lack of cash and trust, we can design policies that actually get the job done. But of course, one clever idea isn't enough. We need big, systemic changes across the whole economy. To really hit vehicle emissions, we've got to tighten fuel efficiency standards for new cars and speed up the switch to EVs. We need to push for cleaner fuels like bio-CNG, especially for buses and trucks. And this is super important. We need to make sure our vehicle pollution tests actually reflect how people drive in the real world, not just in a lab. And on top of all that, we have to get serious about enforcing much stricter pollution rules on big industries, which, as we saw, are a huge part of the problem. So we've looked at the emergency, we've seen the devastating cost, and we've explored the solutions that are out there. Now it all comes down to this. It's about our breath and our future. So let's wrap this up. India's air pollution crisis is a silent emergency, and it's stealing years of life and health from millions of people. But, and this is the key takeaway, it doesn't have to be this way. The way forward isn't some big mystery. We have the solutions, from smarter incentives for farmers to tougher rules for factories. They're right there on the table, just waiting to be used on a massive scale. And in the end, the whole fight for clean air boils down to this one simple question. Because clean air isn't a luxury, it's a basic human right. The technology is there. The policies have been proven to work. The only thing left to ask is if we have the collective will to demand it, to create a future where every single person in India can take a deep breath without being afraid. Clean air is our right, so how are we going to claim it?